convenient. And right now I'm looking for that doctor to get a comment on how he feels about Mr. Gonnet's presentation. I highly doubt that he'll stay around at all. He snuck out a back door, a side door. I went out at the same time as him. There he was, nowhere to be seen. Invisible fiction man.
You know, I think God invented Health Canada so that people wouldn't confuse Canada with heaven.
The other problem is, and so I know in Hamilton Harbour, they're up to 0.31.
Here's the other related issue, which Peter mentioned this morning. What about the workers here in London who are putting this stuff in the water? Peter, this morning.
Will increase the risk of dental fluorosis. And that's where the dentists stop. For me, it's reckless. If you've got to the point that fluoride is damaging the growing tooth cells, wonder whether it's damaging the growing brain cells, bone cells, and other tissues of the baby's body. And Health Canada, and no one else in Canada, is doing any studies whatsoever to look for any harm that fluoride might be doing to babies, or for that matter, anywhere else. They're flying blind.
You go further than say it makes you wonder about the impact. You're saying it does have an impact, and I wonder if you can list what the impact is on babies and small children.
Okay, let me say what we know. What we know is that there are now 26 studies which show an association between modest exposure to fluoride and lowered IQ in children. And those studies from China, India, Iran, and Mexico. That is definite. Now, what is now a matter of discussion, conjecture, call it what you like, is that I argue that there's not an adequate margin of safety between the levels at which that harm is being observed. The lowest at this moment is 1.9 parts per million. There's not an adequate margin of safety there to protect against two things: the full range of exposure to fluoride from all the different sources, and the full range of sensitivity that you can anticipate in a whole large population. We normally do that with any other chemical. Our regulatory bodies do a risk assessment in which they apply a margin of safety to take those two factors into account. They're not doing it. They're ignoring the IQ studies, and they're not doing a margin of safety analysis to even the MPEX endpoints that they know.
Just before we break for a news update on the bottom of the hour, Dr. Conant, I see you on a video in Hamilton just a few days ago. You're in Toronto this weekend. On how many fronts are you fighting this war against fluoride?
Well, it's only one front, really, and that is to get the truth out. And we're just fighting wherever we possibly can. We have this major health conference over the weekend. We have a meeting tonight in Toronto at Metro Hall. And as you say, I was in Hamilton, and it was just depressing to see the propaganda machinery brought out. We had Peter Cooney, the Chief Dental Officer representing Health Canada. We had Annette King representing the Chief Medical Officer of Ontario. And we had the local medical officer of Health, Dr. Chris Mackey. A classic propaganda exercise. And I argue, Andy, that if you're a civil servant, you're being paid by the public, the least we should expect is to hear both sides of any controversial issue, not to hear a propaganda exercise from one side. And you've mentioned debate. You're going to have a debate next week. But unfortunately, I very much doubt that we can get either Peter Cooney, Annette King, or Christopher Mackey, or your own local medical officer to actually have the guts, to have the courage of their convictions and argue what they argue in safe 5-minute slots at public hearings when the opponents are there ready to point to challenge them on the misleading statements that they make. That's what we need, and that's what we should expect. And I would go further. If a civil servant who's out there touting the benefits of fluoridation is not prepared to take those views and subject them to an open public debate or an open public forum where they can be asked questions by the public and by experts who disagree with them, then they should resign. We shouldn't be wasting our taxpayers' money on propaganda.